Good afternoon, everyone. This is a sneak peek at the layout I'll be doing for my process video. It uses the Prima paper collection called Pretty Mosaic. I'll be doing this whole layout step-by-step process for you, and I'll also have got a little technique for you for the double embossing of die cuts to make them actually raised and look like chipboard pieces. And please, if you do like my videos, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also like. And I do love to hear your comments. And I also have a new Facebook group called Project Life Debway Group. We're only a small little group, but we do like to hear from people to see what they're up to. Primas called Pretty Mosaic. It's an absolutely beautiful paper with pinks, burgundies. For this layout, I have actually used a few of the ephemeras, which are here. I did pick up some white butterflies. I also found a die cut. I've added a few little flowers, and these flowers here are the heartfelt oakberry lane blossoms, and I've got the die cut and the stamps, and they're absolutely beautiful, and I've done them on vellum and just added some colour to them. I may use some doilies. I decided these are the papers that I will be using. I've decided to use some of the green just to tie everything in, and I'm introducing some green as my some of my backing things that I'm going to do. I will use white as my photo mats. It's a creamy white, not a white, for my photo mats, because a lot of the photographs I've got are quite dull photographs, so I just need something to pep them up a bit. I've also decided to use some swirls. I've cut two different ones, and these dies are fantastic because they both have a left and a right, which makes it fantastic when you're actually doing cards and etc. And with this paper, it comes with some beautiful words and typesets. I did use the A4 pad because it was the cheapest way to get my papers this time. Now with these die cuts, I will be doing a small technique with these. I'll be double embossing these to make them really glossy white and to show up. I did actually buy with this kit the note cards, mainly because there isn't a lot of florals and things that you can cut out, and this does actually give you a lot of elements and things that you can actually cut out and use. But at the moment, the only card I'm really looking at is this piece here. If not, you could actually use just a piece of white card, and we can add flowers if you don't have this particular pack. So in this layout, I've decided to use some landscapes, some 6x6, 6x6, and some portrait 4x6s this time, so it is a little bit different to what I normally do. Okay, now as I said, I wanted these scrolls to be quite shiny. So how I do that is you can either get an embossing pad and just stamp, or if you've got one of these daubers, these are fantastic, the Emboss It Dauber by Ranger, and you can just get your Emboss It on there, or whatever embossing powder you use. I've already got some in here or laid out, and just sprinkle your embossing powder over the top to give it a good old coating. Shake off the excess and pop it down. And then what we will do is we will just heat gun it. And let it set. Now, to get this looking like an enamel piece, the trick is you need to go over this again with your embossing ink. Like so. And then drop it in to your embossing powder and get a good coating on there. Now this time when you're heat embossing, be very, very gentle with it or it will bubble. So keep your gun a little bit away from it so it's gentler. And once it dries, you'll be able to see that it does become very, very thick. And it looks like enamel, so compared to the first that you've done. What it looked like originally, and this is what it looks like once you've double embossed. So it does become quite thick, and it is a nifty little trick that you can do. Now my doilies were a bit too white for what I wanted, so I have got myself a brush pencil that's got red, but you could use ink, paint, anything. All I have done here is I've just put some of my colour down onto my work surface. I'm just going to add some water to reactivate the watercolour ink that's in these pens. And I'm just using the doily to soak up the colour. There we have a nice washed doily. Now my doilies have nicely dried, and as you can tell, they come out at a beautiful soft colour. Now this piece of paper, I didn't particularly like this, but this pink here, because the dark piece of paper that came with is just too burgundy for what I would like. So I've decided I really do like this very light red. So I am going to make my own paper. Now what you just need is a good old plastic bag of any form or other. Once again, I'm using my brush marker, which has got water ink. You can use any paints, anything that you would like for this. So all I do is I just put a bit of my colour down onto my work surface, activate it with some water like so, and as I said, that's why paint or anything would work. So what I do then, I'll get my trusty bag, just pick up some of your colour, and it will sort of look splodgy like this, and pop it down and spread it out. I just wanted some darker splodgy paper. That wasn't as dark, because I'm not using any brown tones with this. This burgundy paper just didn't cut the mustard. So sometimes you just need to think outside the box. Now the only thing that I found when I was doing my doilies, I did end up with red hands. If you don't want to, you do have that, just wear some gloves. Now I'll pick up the last of my watercolour, and here we have a nice splodgy piece of paper, and it's one way that you can introduce whatever colour that you're using. I actually made one previous, and that's what it actually dries out like. So that will give me plenty of paper to work with. Now this is one of the first of the large cards that I will be doing, which is a 6 by 6. If you haven't got the little card, journaling card pack, which I got this cut out from, you could actually cut just a strip from this paper here, maybe getting some of this in here. You could use this little piece here and cut a strip up like that instead of this, or do a piece of paper and cut a flower out. So that's an option that you can actually use to get around the fact that you haven't got those journaling cards. Now what I've done here, I've used one of my splodgy papers that I've made. I have got I have cut off a 1/4 inch, so it would be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. Now because I don't have very much of this paper, and I'm going to be doing bordering on a lot of things, this here was a real waste, because I am going to put this card over the top. So I've done the sneaky thing, I've actually taken the center out, which is quite a cost saving, because that leaves your papers for your bigger things, and you can use this for all your bordering. So these are going to be constructed like so. Now when you've made your own paper, it can be a little bit floaty, so make sure the next layer you actually put quite a bit of tape onto your item, like so. Now before I stick this down, I have used just some red ink for on my pink surfaces, because the tone matches. So I've just gone round the edging. I have been trialing out these cheap makeup brushes, and I'm still out on the count of these, whether I prefer my daubers to these brushes, but time will tell. And now we'll just attach down like so. I then have a piece of the mosaic, which is 5.5 by 5.5. Now I have used Distress Side Spruce, which is a very limey green, which has got the same toning for the green sheets. But remember that if you're using a normal ink, do not use the same ink as for your Distress Oxides because they go funny. So always keep your daubers for your Distress Oxides separate to your other ink pads. Now we're just going to stick this down so that we have our little borders around. Now onto this, I have cut this sheet out, but as I've explained, you can use different sheets. Now with this, I think I will use some of my red ink. Just to make that stand out a bit against the green there. I might even make that a little bit. There we go. Now we will attach this down after we put our doily on, which as you can tell, it colours quite well. So I'm just going to put two pieces of tape to keep my doily flat. Pop your doily sort of in the middle but over to one side, and then we'll stick this piece down. Now this piece here, I want to just pop onto a bit of a backing card to make it pop. So we'll tape that down. I will just eyeball my cutting. See, that just makes that card just stand out that little bit. So we are now, put your tape towards the inner, because in case we tuck anything underneath this card. And attach that down. Now I did find a slightly larger one of these in the Euphoria pack, which I want to just pop underneath. So once again, just attach a bit of glue. Now with my little white butterfly, I just dunked that in some of my ink when I was doing my inking, just to give me a bit of colour for my butterfly. Yeah. So here I'm going to put and then I'll just position my flowers like so. So we will attach these down.
Safely to the Vulcan ship. As far as I was told, that was exactly what was supposed to occur. So you're telling me this just happened? It doesn't look like it just happened. No. Looks like it happened a long time ago.
Now I've decided that I'm going to use a few darker burgundy flowers in my layout. So I'm just going to hook a few burgundy flowers that I've got lying around the place, just in case I need them. So I think we might attach so we'll attach these.
Security teams conducting boards 1, 2, and 3. This is the commander to call. All security teams remain where you are. Are you crazy? How do we know who these people are on the board? They could try to keep over the ship. There are 30 armed vessels surrounding us. Unless I'm mistaken, the weapons are still targeting our core. Mr. Reed.
Okay, we'll just put our little scroll in where we need to do, and I might tuck a leaf in. Okay, so it's all attached, so we'll attach our leaves. Like so. With your scrolling, the easiest way of attaching this is to just put a little bit of glue and then attach it down. There we go. Now, what I do when I'm doing I have a little box that I've found that I can actually put all of my bits in, so you can have your flowers and everything else as you're doing things, because it just keeps all your amphoria bits from spreading themselves out all over your desk. I quite like this little way. I did buy myself the other day some of these little flat buttons to see whether I like them compared to using dots and etc. So we shall see whether they actually physically do, how easy they are to use. Okay, so I've decided just to put there we go. I personally think that probably the Nuvo drops is probably easier to deal with than these little gold droplets, but it is nice to try things just to see whether they work or not. We shall see. Now I just need to put my butterfly on. Here we go. Just put a little bit of silver there just to add a little bit more oomph to my butterfly. And there we have our first card finished. Now we are doing the bottom corner card. I've got a 6x4 plain white. This card here I got from my journal cards, but you could use this sheet here for the same thing. I'm just going to quickly do my edging. And we will attach this card. This is a card that I want to do for journaling. So I got the journaling spot from the sheet with all the sayings. So it's the one that was here. Now I have cut a piece of white card that is 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. So place that into the middle. And then I wanted a piece of stripe just to make this stand out more. So I just found some card that was the burgundy, the same toning as the roses that I could use, and I used the same underneath the note there just to make it pop that little bit more. I have found it did lack, like it's got the green, but it does lack a bit of colour, so I thought I might introduce a little bit of the dark burgundy. So we'll put this more up to the top, like so. Now then we'll put this note sheet. I do find with the Prima collections you do have to add other colours and things because you haven't got as many papers a lot of the other lines produce. But if you do buy the journaling cards, it does afford you more paper, but they do have the round corners. Now I decided down here I wanted this wonderful stamp, but before I do that, this is where these left hand curls are really, really good. You can actually put them underneath. Just undo that for a minute. And you can pop them underneath. And then if you curl them, they will curl over the top of your paper. So I'm going just to attach that.
Our supply will be gone in less than 2 weeks. There's nothing we can do.
Are you certain? You seem to have a large inventory. Our sensors showed over 80,000 liters.
You scanned our tape. I apologize, but when you didn't respond to our hail. You sure you couldn't spare a few hundred liters? We're holding that for someone else. Come back at the end of the season, I'm sure we'll be able to accommodate you. Do you have any experience repairing extraction pumps? Not specifically, but I could grab some tools and take a look. To get those pumps operating, we can make our quota. It seems that there might be an opportunity for us to help each other. Follow me.
There we go, we can just tuck that over. And this is the great thing about having a die with a left and a right, you actually get them matching. So now I want to pop the wonderful just here, like so. I'm not going to edge it or anything else, I want it left.
What are you doing in the chair?
I didn't touch anything.
Now we will just pop our flowers in.
You should have asked.
You might have said no.
Well,
And then pop a leaf
what do you think?
in like so. So now we will, once you've worked out where you want your flowers, you can actually
Maybe you need longer arms.
How's that gonna go?
She's designed for 1/4 impulse, but how about able to squeeze a little more out of her?
You're a pilot?
Engineer, Commander Trip Tucker.
No.
Nice to meet you.
Could you just clarify? I can drive the cars that we used to move our drill rigs.
Tell you what, I'll be heading back up to the ship later. You can come along with the power with your folks. We'll give you to them.
Really?
might just move.
We need 6. We can't spare that much. Maybe 3. Do you have any idea how much labor it takes to refine a liter of material? Actually, no. I'd enjoy seeing how your facility works. In 3 months of good weather, Captain. 3 months to pump all the deuterium we can before the winter. We don't have time to get tools. 5 power cells for 200 liters. I can't do any better.
And there we have our next card, which of course we can put our journaling and use it as a journaling spot. That was a very easy card to complete. Now we are doing the bottom corner card. I've got a 6x4 plain white. This card here I got from my journal cards, but you could use this sheet here for the same thing. I'm just going to quickly do my edging. we will attach this card. This is a card that I want to do for journaling. So I got the journaling spot from the sheet with all the sayings. So it's the one that was here. Now I have cut a piece of white card that is 3 1/4 by 5 1/4. So place that into the middle. And then I wanted a piece of stripe just to make this stand out more. So I just found some card that was the burgundy, the same toning as the roses that I could use, and I used the same underneath the note there just to make it pop that little bit more. I have found it did lack, like it's got the green, but it does lack a bit of colour, so I thought I might introduce a little bit of the dark burgundy. So we'll put this more up to the top, like so. Now then we'll put this note sheet. I do find with the Prima collections you do have to add other colours and things because you haven't got as many papers a lot of the other lines produce. But if you do buy the journaling cards, it does afford you more paper, but they do have the round corners. Now I decided down here I wanted this wonderful stamp, but before I do that, this is where these left hand curls are really, really good. You can actually put them underneath. Just undo that for a minute. And you can pop them underneath. And then if you curl them, they will curl over the top of your paper. So I'm going just to attach that. Just tuck that over. And this is the great thing about having a die with a left and a right. You actually get them matching. So now I want to pop the wonderful just here, like so. I'm not going to edge it or anything else. I want it left.
What are you doing in the chair?
I didn't touch anything. I just...
Now we will just pop our flowers in.
You should have asked.
You might have said no.
Well,
And then pop a leaf
what do you think?
in like so. So now we will, once you worked out where you want your flowers, you can actually
Maybe you need longer arms.
How's that gonna go?
might just move.
5 power cells for 200 liters. I can't do any better.
And there we have our next card, which of course we can put our journaling and use it as a journaling spot. That was a very easy card to complete. Now I've organised my photographs for my layout for once, which is unusual, and I've sized them to the 3x4s and etc. for what I need in my layout. So as I'm doing my layouts, I will be putting my photographs on as I do my layouts. And if you need to know how I actually do this, I do have a YouTube on resizing photographs and etc. on how I print my photographs off. Now I'm on to my last two portrait cards. Now this one here is going to be a full one for a photograph, and unfortunately with Prima, with this particular collection, there wasn't enough of a plain cardstock. So I've actually gone through my stocks to find the right toning of the burgundy that I've used, and this is fairly close to some of the burgundy, but there wasn't enough to do matte. So I've just gone through my odd papers that I've had left over from collections and found one with the right tonings, and this is it. Even though the print's going the wrong way, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to be hiding it. Okay. Now with this one here, I've done in the red, and this one I've done in the green. So this is my 6x4. I will attach my burgundy card, which is 3 7/8 by 5 7/8, so that you just get a border that is just a smidgen under, so that you've got just a tiny little green border. And then my next card is 3 3/4 by 5 3/4, and once again that will just give you that little 1/8 of an inch border just all around. Now my photo mat is 5 1/2 by 3 1/2, which of course you can cut your 6x4 down, but because I print my own photographs up, I have done my photograph to fit my photo frame. So I'm going to stick that down. I think this is the first time I've actually been able to put photographs on my layouts as I'm doing them. So there we go, we have finished the one card. Now our last card for this side of the layout, I've got your 6x4 white mat. I'm using the Crazy Pave here, which I've outlined in red ink. So once again, this one is 3 7/8 by 5 7/8, and the reason why it will match this photograph here with the actual borders, so that it just gives a bit of continuity with your layout. So once again, you just get that lovely little 1/8 of an inch border. Now the difference with this one, I have got my 3 1/2 by 4 1/2 sheet here, which I want to put just down the bottom, making sure that your little borders are the same all the way around, and it will leave this top bit. Now the reason why I've done the top bit is because when it's going side by side, it will lay here. If you put this down like this, you would have your bits and pieces exactly the same. So we will offset it so that our bits and bobs are up at the top, which gives you a much nicer look on your layout. So with this one, I've just cut out one of my words like beautiful dreams. You could use anything you wanted. I've backed it onto my burgundy so that it actually brings in the burgundy here. I've just got one of my little scrolls which I've just chopped the top off, and I cut one of my flowers out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my flower up here with my scroll, which the great thing about these scrolls is you can actually put them over the top of your flowers. So we're going to do that. Then Beautiful Dreamer, I will just pop up the top here. So we will stick our things down, and I forgot to tip my glue up, so it's ready and waiting for our sticking. Now just make sure that you don't get your tape underneath here for when you're putting your photograph on. Or if you're like me and you've got your photograph, you can actually lay your photograph in first, which makes placing your ephemera much, much easier. Like so. So then I can stick my little scroll in. And I've edged this in a little bit of red. Like so. Now I think I will use some dimensional tape with this. Get rid of that tape because that's not allowing my dimensional tape. Okay, we'll just stick our little scroll down. Put our Beautiful Dreamer. See, this is the difference with having your photographs. You can actually stick things on top of your photograph, which does make things easier. But normally I'm not that organised. And there we have our next card. So all in all, now this is what it's looking like. Now I haven't stuck these photographs down here, but once again you could have a full photograph like this one here without your beautiful life there, but I wanted the two photographs there, so I have actually printed these up to be the correct size. That is the good thing about doing your own photographs. You can actually do them to what size, but always if you are printing your own photographs, make sure that you use the best Kodak or printer paper, because the cheaper ones that you get from the cheaper shops, unfortunately, they they fade over the years, whereas your Kodak paper, your photographs will last, particularly if you have a good photographic printer. So there we have our first layout, and I've got a nice journaling spot to put my journaling. So we'll get on to the next side of the card. Now we're on to our landscape cards on the other side, which I've reverted to my normal 4 of these plus my 3x4s, but with this one I have used my spludgy card, which I'm just going to quickly edge. And I must admit, now I've got used to using these little brushes. They are pretty amazing. They give you a very, very nice soft edge. They take a little bit of getting used to, but I think I'll be buying some more of these little brushes. Okay, this particular one I have used from the 6x4 card that Prima do, because I liked the border, but you could use just some of your green triangular card for this if you didn't have those cards. I just like the border, or you could have some green card, which if you've got a stamp, you could stamp a border as well, which would work. I've got my 2 doilies, which I'm going to now I've cut them because I want my doilies to sort of be like, whereas if you use the whole doily you'd lose all the top, so I've just trimmed mine off in half. Now I'm going to sort of just lay, now I'm going to put my butterfly there to hide my upside down butterfly there, and down here I'm going to move my doily just slightly . No, I'm going to leave it where it was. Okay, so this is going to go down in the bottom corner, which hides the bits there, and then I'm going to put I think I prefer it that way. Just tuck that in like that. And then I've got a couple of my little like so. There we go. So once you've actually got your sort of layering working, you can dismantle your card. Particularly with this sort of card, it always pays to sort of lay everything down first. Give that a bit of a, so I'm going to lay that one so that my border sits. And if you remember rightly, and I've gone round all of this with, edged it with red. So we're going to tuck that underneath. Now with Project Life albums, it always pays to try and keep your cards as flat as possible, because otherwise you will find by the end of the album you can't fit as many pages in. So that's why I dismantle flowers and things so they're not bulky. Or if you're going to have some raised things, make sure through your album they're all in different spots so that your album equalizes out, because if you do it in the same spot every time it will just build up the width of your photographs. Now this is just from stock that I've had lying around. I think I had this on an album that I didn't finally use, so I just put it into my butterfly box because I knew one day I would use it, and today is the day. But if you've got a die cutter, you could cut a little butterfly out yourself, or if you haven't got a die cut like this, you could go into your secret cache of things. See, I've got some die cut butterflies that I could have used and everything else. Or you can go to your white butterflies. You could have sort of picked up a white butterfly. I've even got some in vellum, so you could use that. You could have also, if you've got wood ones, you could use a wood, or if you've got metal, you could use a metal butterfly. There's a lot that you can do. So I do keep a lot of butterflies in my stock of things that I'm going to use, because I use butterflies a lot. Now we're just going to stick and I must order some more vellum because I really did like the way that these little heartfelt flowers turned out. Okay, we'll put our leaf in. The only thing with vellum is it doesn't notice on these, but you have to be careful where you put your tape if they're a little bit see-through. Now, if your vellum is not sticking down, just attach a little bit more glue just to get them to sit nice and flat. There we go. So there we have, quite quickly, an eye candy card. Now I'm going to add my little and I must admit I do prefer the sticky ones. Probably if I use tweezers it would be an easier job, but I don't get on very well with those tweezers. I always open and shut them wrong. I know these are cheap to buy this way, but there we have our next little card. And as I said, they will all flatten down when they sort of go into the pocket. So there we have it. And you can actually see the difference it makes with shrinking that doily so that you actually get the tops of the doily. Now on to our next card. I have got a 4x3 photo mat, which I have got the photograph, which I've just cut down from a 3x4 photograph just to give a white border. So we'll lay that on our photo mat. Now what I've done with this card, I've used the little squares and I've made sure that my squares sort of line up. Now I've edged that with the green, and this particular one I've edged with the red. Now this one here, I have cut a card that is 3 3/4 by 3 because I only had that much card left, but I just want that to go on there to give me a bit of a border around. Let me get that nice straight. There we go. Stick that down. Now this here, I'm going to pop over here with my photo mat. So this would be 4 1/4 by 3 1/4. So that will give me my 1/4 of an inch border around my photograph. And it's just to give me a bit of layering. I'll pop my photograph on. My mat. And then we'll lay that down. So once again, we have the same sort of border as we have on this side, but it will just go over the card layer that we have attached here, and it looks to me. Now this express tape is quite movable when you first use it, but by tomorrow, if I tried to rip a photograph off, it would just tear everything because it really does set as it goes. So there we have our photograph. Now I've decided to use one of the, this has some gorgeous little teacups that you can use, and I've cut out a Moments, which came from the sheet with all the different elements that you can cut out. And I've edged them in red, and the Moments I've edged in green. A little white butterfly I've actually done with some green. So what I'm going to do here, I want my little butterfly up here, and I want my Moments down here. Now my Moments I am going to put onto dimensional tape. So I'm going to stick my Moments down on my sheet. I will then go to my dimensional tape, and as I've said before, if you use really good tapes, you will find that nothing in 10 years time, everything will still be in the same position as you've actually put your tape. Whereas if you buy cheaper tapes, you will find when you go to open your albums, all your bits and bobs that you've taped down will all be loose and coming off. I'm just going to slant my butterfly. Now with my butterflies, like the other side, I'm just going to put some glitter. For some reason my glitter has probably because I stored the bottle upwards instead of downwards. So there I've used 2 small ones. So my layout will be slightly different. But I have used the odd piece of paper that I got from another Prima line that the tonings were correct for what I wanted. So I've done that with the red ink. So once again, that is 5 3/4 by 3 3/4, which just gives you that nice little border all the way around. Now, if you were doing a 3 by 4 mat, you would probably layer this with a little border and then put your photograph here and then do your layering here. So that's the way that you would set it up. But because mine is slightly different, I am going to lay this card down here, and then I'm going to lay this one over the top, and then I'm going to do these small photographs like so, and then I'm going to lay some scrolls in either side and put some flowers on both, whereas you would actually do all your flowers down this side. So my card will be slightly different to suit the needs, but it just shows how you can change cards up to suit what you need. So I'm going to put this in the middle, then put my next card in the middle. You could even put your 6 by 4 in the middle if you wanted to. Then I'm going to do my mats. I'm going to put my photographs on my little squares, and this is a benefit once again of doing your own photographs. You can make them the size that you require. And we'll put those on to mats, and because they're not showing up as much as I want them to, I'm going to make these quite dark. Just to make them pop a bit. On my cards. Now I'm going to put my photographs on. Like so, and I'm going to attach these like so. Keeping my borders fairly similar. just have a play with your flowers. Now if you were doing this way, you could have a photograph here and then your display up here with this in the middle, so you can just change it up on how you want it to look. Now I'm just going to dismantle that a little bit and then just start sticking my bits down. For some reason my vellum flowers are folding upwards. Oh, never mind. Bit of glue will hold them down. Okay, I'll bring that down. Might bring that up a bit. And once again, I have to put my two little centers in. So I have a large one for this one. A small one for that one. That's one thing with using a good glue, you can actually sort of just shift things around a bit to get them looking right. And there we have our last 6x4 landscape card. Now we're on to our 3x4s. So all I've got here is one of the burgundy cards, which I want just as a border. So I've just cut down a smidgen this card here, which is 2 3/4 by 3 3/4, which once again gives you a nice little border. And then I have my photograph that I want. And this was a funny shape photograph, so it's not going to be perfect, but I'll center it up as best as I can. And I'm going to put some journaling in, so I just put a little journaling spot up here describing what this photograph is. And there we have our next card. Okay, we're just on to the 3x4 cards. So I have done my normal backing card here. So we just attach this with our little border. And I've decided to do a little bit of green with just a border. And then I have cut from the Euphoria, I found this little card, so we're going to stick that like so. So we have our borders again, and I've edged everything in green. And I cut this one out in Good Company, so I'm going to stick that onto my card, so it has a border. And then this will be attached in the center like so. And then I need once again to put my 2 little dots and there we have our next card. Finished. This card here, I've got your 3x4, and what I've done with my white photo mat, I have just taken a whisker off of the card, so we've got a tiny little border like this, and this one here will be what I class as an eye candy card, which means it doesn't have a photograph on. So I'm just going to stick like this, so you've got just a tiny border around the card. Now this card does not look even, so I'm just going to check that it is square, which it is not. Okay, that's better. I did a bit of a incorrect cut there. Now this card here, I am just going to pop that on, and once again I've just taken this card here is 2 3/4 by 4 3/4. We will get this.
I said to my whole team, I was like, I'm desperate for a scrapbook team of Australia. I feel like this is crying out for somebody like you.
This white card wasn't cut quite right, but for the sake of this video, I will correct that later. Now I've got one of my double embossed little flowers here, so what I do is I normally will just construct quickly, so I sort of know where I'm putting things. That looks good. So I'll dismantle and then I'll start gluing. So I'll stick that down with a bit of glue. Any bits that aren't, you can add a little bit more glue.
Expert health advice, and to help support local businesses and jobs, the South Australian government is further easing COVID-19 restrictions. From June 1, restrictions will ease on
Okay.
governments and businesses, including
Put one of my vellum flowers that are made from my heartfelt stamps.
The number of people allowed in venues will continue. To find out more, visit sa.gov.au today.
Put my red.
Safe and strong.
Elena, someone burned down your house. Do you know anyone that would do this? Everybody's gonna be held accountable for their actions.
You were gonna pretend nothing happened. I thought we were friends.
Stick the one leaf. I always try and sort of work like with leaves, odd groupings. Now we also need one of my gold little dots. And for some reason, vellum likes to curl up, so you have to sort of put some glue underneath the petals to keep them down, which if you were doing built flowers would be a terrific thing, but in Project Life you don't actually want that bulk. And I'll just put my little butterfly on. And put my little bit of silver in there to make your wings. And there we have our little eye candy card done. This last card, you could use just any of some of the scraps of the burgundy cards that you used. I have just got a white photo mat, so we've just got the edging showing of the purple card. You could have a full photograph here, but this was a photograph from the paper and it was only square. So I'm going to stick this down. Here we go. And I have the heading that came in the paper. So we're just going to stick that down. And there we have our little card. Here is our finished layout now with all our cards done. I just have a bit of journaling to add to my items, which I will do next. So it just shows what your layout will actually be look like when you are finished. And please don't forget to like my channel and also pop over to the Facebook group called Project Life Deb Ways group. We're a nice little group and we all sort of put what we're making. So till next time, keep safe and enjoy your scrapping. Bye.